President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the immediate retirement of all service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, advisors, and the Controller General of Customs from service and appointed their replacements with immediate effect. Tinubu consequently appointed Malam Nuhu Ribadu as National Security Advisor, Major General C.G. Musa as Chief of Defense Staff, Major General T.A. Lagbaja as Chief of Army Staff, Rear Admiral E.A. Ogala as Chief of Naval Staff, AVM H.B. Abubakar as Chief of Air Staff, and DIG Kaode Egbetukun as Inspector General of Police, and Major General E.P.A. Nwandi Andeye as Chief of Defense Intelligence. The President also appointed some special advisors in different capacities, including Anatu Musawa and Adiza Bala Usman as special advisors, and equally approved the immediate dissolution of the governing boards of all federal government parastatals, agencies, institutions, and government-owned companies. A statement yesterday by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, announced the retirement and appointments of the affected officers. Joining us now to discuss President Tinubu's sacking of the service chiefs and appointment of new ones is Major General IBM Haruna, who is a former Federal Commissioner for Information and Culture. Good morning, General, and thank you for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, just going by the introduction, it would be nice to have your take on the disengagement of the service chiefs and the appointment of new ones. And then I would like to know, a point we raised earlier here, whether the President should have gone as far as appointing the boys, appointing artillery commanders, brigade commander, regiment commander, artillery commander. Is that in line with military culture? Your take.
Well, my take, if I may just start by saying that the Commander-in-Chief is an elected democratic president, and his policies and directions as Commander-in-Chief is that of a political democratic leader, unlike when we had the military constituted dictatorship, as I may call it. I congratulate him. I congratulate the new officers being appointed and those who have successfully completed their term, the appointment term. However, there are some worrying concerns about the successive change of top leadership brass of the military and the security architectural leaders. The first concern is that we seem to be endorsing that individuals by themselves do matter more than the institutions that they lead. I think we seem to have changed our leadership of the military and security top brass too often, so that it creates a concern about the reliability on the institutions themselves rather than of individuals. I think that the stability of leadership should be more ingrained and made distinct as from when they were under the military intervention and when they are under the democratic rule. One concern is, of course, that the security personnel are far different from the political individuals. The military personnel are subject as professionals to their own distinct law, but when they are put together under one procedure, under the political regime, seem to create another worrying concern, because as far as possible, I think the professional leaders of the security agents, the military in particular, should be allowed to fulfill their terms of engagement in accordance to the Constitution and in accordance with the law of their profession. When they are lumped together with politicians, they seem to be creating of the idea that the military as a part of and parcel of the political party regime that is ruling. However, I think as professionals, they should be dealt with separately, and when public announcements are made, they should be made in consonance with their rules and their laws of engagement.
Yes, sir.
Because it can disturb the chain of morale being sustained within the security services, their competence, their confidence in the stability of their loyalty to the state and the system. They should not be made to feel that their loyalty goes to individual regimes, particularly in an environment where we are struggling with building a nation.
Yes, sir.
Building patriotism.
All right. Thank you very much, Major General.
Yes, well,
I.B. Haruna.
Right,
I'd like
you.
you to now just examine, individually these appointments. So first is the NSA, Malam Nuhu Ribadu. A number of people had actually speculated that perhaps he might be appointed as such. But there are questions around him being, having a background in the police force. Traditionally, at least in recent times, it had been to a military officer and to someone who's had a military background. What's your take on this in terms of best fit for that position, his experience, his antecedents, his achievements as the FCC boss? What's your assessment of him being the new national security advisor to the president?
Well, as I said earlier, he is an experienced police officer, and he has an experienced intelligence officer. Be that as it may, he's a politician. And the public announcement that was made, which to me goes as far as publishing the units of security officers down the line, in itself, I feel is a breach of security. What I was saying is that he, being a police officer in the past, is now a politician. But those professionals of the military security services, they belong to a different, kettle of fish. I think Ribadu's appointment is okay. I am not particularly concerned about his appointment. But I'm concerned about the way and manner he was lumped together with professional military and security men in the public announcement. To me, maybe I'm of the old regime. I still think has an element of breach of security. There are public officers, offices which they hold, but they are from different stock. He is from the police, he is for internal security. The other military men from the armed services are dealing with externalities of security that impinges on Nigeria. And I think that the process for their engagement, their training, and eventual disengagement should be in accordance, perhaps more in accordance with the separation of them being identified as if they were politicians with their politicians. Because I think that their services encompasses and is more exclusive than internal security and internal intelligence for the security of the state. And I think that the notion of being lumped together and as if they are all in the same stream of professional dispensation of their functions, I don't think that in a democratic dispensation that it should be so. In the sense that we create a perception that the military characteristics of the deployment of professional men in the security services has no difference between a military regime or a democratic regime. My contention really is that perhaps the new leadership should give themselves some space in dealing with members of the armed forces per se, because I think the heads of the various services, Army, Navy, Air Force, and so on, they are professionally engaged in their input to the political regime, be it Buhari or His Excellency Bola Tinubu. Their perception and engagement runs much deeper in the deserving patriotism and their commitment to nation building than I would say to the politicians who can change their seeming dedication on the basis of the leadership, the political leadership. It may be one party today, one party tomorrow, but the armed forces and the security personnel remain doggedly committed to the nation of preserving Nigeria, preserving its territory, preserving the safety and security of the people. What how the politicians change? I think my real theme is that we should not put politicians and military security people in the same pot, which we are trying now to put together by the attitude of changing the security leadership as often as we have a perception that they are the ones who make things matter even in the battlefront or war front. They fight the war, they fight the preservation of the state integrity, but under the leadership of the civilian politicians. So if they are changed simply because there's a change of political regime, it keeps or brings about the thinking that if you are not perceived loyal to the present regime, you are also not perceived as loyal to the state. I think that the political manifesto of the political regime can be achieved without interference with the corporate body and leadership of the security agencies.
Sir. Okay, sir. If I can. Okay, sir. I mean, very strong points you have made, as regards all of this. And I just wanted to read out a message, and I wanted you to react to it. This person was with you at the NIA, and he made some points, and he said, that the National Security Advisor has no experience in national security, which covers foreign policy strategy. And he's talking about the fact that his strategy, the tradition has been broken with that appointment. I mean, you've talked about it now. What should we be looking at, very soon, and as things go out, based on the fact that we have challenges as regards security in every part? And what will be your advice to the president as regards this?
Well, we have challenges both in the internal domestic front, and we also have challenges with international relations with nations who want to interfere or dictate our economic and political will. The security operators, particularly in the military, engage both in peace or in war with the developments that touches on our external relations and strategic deployment of our resources in order to gather the kind of influences that we need to impart on the growing scenario in the international scene. I think that the military are vast both in the domestic and the external plane far more than a personnel who is trained even doing security in the domestic plane as a police officer. I'm not saying it limits totally his horizon of capacity or efficiency, but the concentration of his professional input to the scenario is much more domestic and internal in training and in performance. And I think they are more inclusive within the domestic plane, while that of the military and security architecture of the military organizations are more exclusive and more international, because when the shove comes to the shove, they are dealing with combating aggression or conflict with foreign forces and foreign nations than they are. Although the military have operated so much in the domestic front that they seem to be intertwined with the internal or domestic security forces like the police. It's something we have to iron out, and I think when people talk about structural realignment of the constitutional architecture, it brings into sharp focus the idea of domesticating within local or within the federating units the essence of the localization of security forces, including the police and other chains of institutions. But the armed forces, the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, and what have you, in the way we have structured our drive to even independence and post-independence, their functions have been separated. Their training are distinctly different. So we have to choose perhaps a clearer demarcation and a clearer relationship that doesn't bring some doubts or ambiguities in who does what. But I think that we have come somewhere where we should think about either to unite or to separate, and how far do we unite the security forces in the training and allocation of responsibilities and the coordinating parameters which we have to put. Anyway, I think that the new communication revolution would make it easier than it would have been without it. I think using and employing modern techniques and modern communication equipment, that these things can be, this coordination and operations could be made more cooperative and easier. But I think each institution should keep in focus the details of its own challenges and efficiency or capacity to do what they should do.
General, two quick questions. One, if you look at the distribution of the new service chiefs across the geopolitical zones, the Northwest has 2, Southwest 2, Northeast 1, Southeast 1, and I think South also has 1. And people from the North Central are complaining that they were shut out from positions in the National Assembly, and now service chiefs, North Central has not been covered, although the Secretary to the Government of the Federation is from North Central. Should this be an issue? Do you think that the North Central is being shortchanged? That's one question.
The reason why it has become an issue in Nigeria is that we use academic instruments of analysis to practicalize on the plane where these indices are really not relevant. I think the bullet does not choose where you come from, either northeast or northwest, and so on. So as members of the armed forces, from my experience, I think things have not changed, even though I look back, 191 registration number, or my military number. But I now see that officers have gotten to about 18,000, and their serial number is getting close to that many. I think what we need to do is that those analyses are relevant for power sharing within the political plane, but we should not attribute them as very high values that must be applied to the makeup of the armed forces. Again, I am saying, although the security outfits must be patriotic and committed, they must not be made to think as if they are political representatives in their institutions. They are not faced. When I was commanding troops during the Civil War, we know that we are in conflict with our own brothers, and we have to limit the extent to which we do damage. But we are not thinking of them as Northeast, Northwest, North Central, Christian, Muslim, or whatever. Similarly, I think when the enemy bullets and bombardments are shared between the cities and towns, the victims are not selected. So I think we should stop using indices of political analysis and power sharing on the desire and need to have a united security outfits and operators on those bases. Unfortunately, our experience since 1966 coup has emboldened the desire to go otherwise, that is towards the political shift. But now we are in a state of nation building and nation creation of new values. And I think those analyses should not be used in the open to justify the appointment of personnel required to sustain the strength and unity of the Nigerian state. They should be differentiated. It goes back to the theme I was pursuing earlier, that military establishment and personnel should be separated from the political system and political operators. Let them be allowed to go on their own trajectory of building an armed forces or security forces that are united in their objective of a nation that is united in diversity and not divided on the basis that they are politically Northwest, Northeast, Yoruba, Fulani, Hausa, Christian, and Muslim. It takes an effort, and that effort is for the politicians. But if the politicians want tribal police and then tribal army to follow, then where do we go with our theme of unity and diversity? We're pulling one way with the left side and then dragging it the other way with the right side. I think there should be some critical distinction in policy implementation that will allow the armed forces, the way they are going, they are uniting the country. And when it comes to this open political power sharing analysis, Northeast and so on, we should play down on that as far as they are concerned.
All right. Okay, well, thank you for that. I just wanted to ask you with regards to expectations. The new service chiefs have their work cut out for them. One of the key areas that the president has said he would focus on during his administration is security. Aside from economy, job creation, and the like, but security is at the very forefront. We have issues around oil theft, so the chief of naval staff has his work cut out for him. We have issues around banditry, issues around herdsmen and farmer clashes, a number of issues in security terms. What are your expectations for the service chiefs in the next few months, working with the president?
Well, the security issues, by and large, are internal issues. Security by itself is all-encompassing. It's not something that is only a challenge for the security professionals and forces. It's a challenge for each and everyone in the nation. The stealing of oil, the terrorism in the farmlands, they all affect the economy of the state and the stability and the ability of the state to garner the revenues it needs to run its forces. security is all encompassing. It's in the food, it is in the oil industry, it is in industry, it is in manufacturing. So they have to consolidate the political leaders and the executioners of policy. They have to consolidate and ensure that we are pulling in the same direction of growing a nation that will be strong to perform its roles on the world plane and also on the international plane. I don't think that you can isolate the stealing of oil in far more different way in terms of security than you can separate terrorism and banditry that stops farmers engage in producing food or for mobility to be able to carry this food to where it is required, whether schools or hospitals or the military and so on. Security is all encompassing. We should stop isolating it as if it is one idea in one place and is different in another place. First and foremost, I think all the essence of the security must bring about good life and security of life and property to each and every citizen in the country.
Right. Thank you so much for that. I mean, we've talked about security, we've talked about these new service chiefs. Let's talk about another part of all of this, which is the customs. For a while now, President Muhammadu Buhari brought his own person, his own ally, Colonel Ahmadu Ali, into the customs. And a lot of people felt disgruntled because people normally want to rise up the top, the ladder to get to the top of customs, to get to the position of Controller General. But President Bola Tinubu has finally brought in somebody within the ranks of the customs. Awale Adeni has grown across the ranks. What do you think this will do for our custom officers as we battle various challenges across our borders? And what would you suggest, sir,
well, I know
should be the architecture to securing our very porous borders, expansive and porous borders? Added to that, sir.
The answer to these, your questions, if I answer them here, I will send you a bill because these are what professional institutions are made for. And I can't give you shorthand answer without charging you. I'm unemployed now and unemployable. But you want me to solve
General, we are capable, sir. We are capable, General. We will pay for it.
So
we'll pay for it, General.
Let me tell you. Buhari, the president, was advised within the context of the challenges of security and morale and career prospects of those in the customs. Well, he had done his 8 years. Nigeria will go on for many, many more years and so on. So the present regime will handle the situation if they engage people like me. I'm a general and also a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Management. We will give them good advice, but I think there are so many good advice already in the books. We have so many recommendations, and those in customs, they pursue their custom duties as a career. If they are not sustained with goodwill, with high morale, with all the good things we talk about, patriotism and comradeship and so on, like other forces, they will not perform. What we are really up against is the capacity to perform, the ability to discern the path and trajectory of development. There are countries that have succeeded with their customs, and we can learn from them. And I know that we have the ability and the capacity to do that. I think varying answers that have been provided by the previous regime perhaps have not worked, but they have worked to an extent. The present democratic government should pick up the pieces, put them together, and use the resources available to make sure that all services are in operative gear to answer their father's name in the profession they are pursuing. You complain about the customs and the innovative experiment that was carried out by bringing a military retired officer and all that. But look at all our fields of endeavors, not just customs in the security. You know, what do you think about local security? I think there is no one stock and barrel answer to these issues. Well, the only answer is that if we have improved and taken or elected people with the right vision, with the right commitment and guidance, they have 4 years, perhaps +4. Let us be able to audit, get the reports, and perform. There are so many good reports about what can be done in Nigeria, in documents that need to be taken out of the drawer, dusted and updated so that we can move forward. In any case, the present regime cannot do, the present president cannot do more than 4 years, or the governors, until after they have been re-endorsed for another 4. They can't do more than 8 until we change the constitution. So the underlying basic really dictates we must follow is the provisions of the constitution or statutory laws, or our will to change them, and follow when we have changed them, not change them only to disobey the new laws. So basically, let's go on a path and trajectory of law and order, constitutionalism, justice, and the good things for which a big nation with big population and Nigeria should be better known for than being known for all the things that corruption and immorality can input in the movement of a nation destined to be great.
General, just before we begin to wrap up, there's a gentleman called Asari Dokubo. I'm sure you must have heard about him. He says that Nigerian soldiers, Navy, Army are thieves, stealing Nigerian crude oil. I mean, you are of the older generation of Nigerian soldiers. Do they train Nigerian soldiers to also steal? Is it part of the training? And to steal Nigerian crude?
Nigerian soldiers, and the Nigerian motor park boys, they are all Nigerians. Dukubo himself is a Nigerian. Does he free himself from stealing of oil or from benefiting from the stealing of oil? What is he talking about? For all I know and all I think about is that maybe he's accusing soldiers and lower grade people who take jerry cans of petrol while they are behind the stealing and enjoyment of millions of dollars stashed in their bank accounts. How did he finance his empire in those areas? No. I think talking about Tukubo and others is because the impact of security and its operations have failed. Those who are accusing the military or other services, they point one hand at them and 3 fingers are pointing at them. In the Nigerian situation, they cannot get to where they have gotten and be talking the way they are talking if the spill of oil is not dripping from their ears and mouth.
Well, thank you very much for your time this morning. Major General Ibrahim.
Leave these individuals alone. Let's face the country.
Maugwi Haruna retired. Maugwi, thank you so much for your time this morning. Former Federal Commissioner for Information and Culture. We really appreciate your time. I think it's time you can go and take some rest now. Thank you.